8 Nazi inventions that we still use today. The Third Reich, Nazi Germany, was a great inhuman experiment where life was not valued, especially the lives of the so-called inferior races. Hitler's scientists, military, medical, and engineering performed hundreds of experiments and invented dozens of war machines. Many of the results of their work are still in use today. Find out what a terrible price was paid for these inventions. 8. Nazi experiments with hypothermia. The physician Sigmund Rascher conducted experiments on living human beings, human material. In 1941, in the concentration camps at Dachau and Auschwitz, he studied the effects of hypothermia on the human condition. Subjects were placed in tanks of icy water and recorded the changes that occurred to them. Other people were kept in the freezing cold for hours and then thrown into a tub of near-boiling water. And then they were watched again. All this was necessary to adapt the Nazi soldiers to the conditions of the harsh Russian winter. Rascher figured out that if a man's cerebellum became hypothermic, it would almost certainly kill him. As a result, life jackets with a special head restraint that holds the head above the surface of the water appeared. All modern passenger planes are equipped with such vests. 7. Nazi experiments with antibiotics. Hundreds of people in the concentration camps were killed when they were tested with sulfonamides, synthetic antibiotics. The test subjects were purposely damaged. The body was cut, foreign objects were put into open wounds, and blood was stopped in order to prevent the body to cope with sepsis on its own. Sulfonamides are still used in medicine to treat various infections. 6. Nazi experiments with blood. Joseph Mengele, whose name has become a household name, conducted experiments on twins, among other things. In the Auschwitz camp where he worked, the newly arrived twins were looked at with horror. Everyone knew what they would have to endure. Among the experiments conducted by the Angel of Death Dr. Mengele were attempts to change one of the twins' eye color and blood composition in order to make the subject racially pure. Plasmapheresis was invented in the Third Reich. It was a byproduct of the cannibalistic blood purification experiments of the Nazi scientists. Mengele conducted experiments on children, most of which ended in death. Plasmapheresis, cleansing the blood of toxins and putting them back into the bloodstream, is a useful medical procedure used in the treatment of aneurysms, strokes, autoimmune, and other diseases. It has nothing to do with the Nazis' anti-scientific theory about the impurity of non-Aryan blood. 5. Automobiles in the Third Reich. Volkswagen. The history of the people's car, the Volkswagen Beetle, began in 1933. Adolf Hitler personally summoned Ferdinand Porsche and demanded that he develop the first truly mass-produced car that the average German family could afford. Porsche developed a series of prototypes, but they were not strong enough and too expensive. Production was handed over to Daimler and Benz. It took 50 million Reichsmarks to build the plant. The first batch of cars came out of the Daimler-Benz plant in 1937. They received propaganda name KDF Kraft durch Freude, power through happiness. However, World War II, which began soon, forced to curtail the program to provide Germany with cheap cars. The plant reoriented to the production of military equipment. After defeat of Hitlerites, the plant found itself on the territory of British occupational zone. During the first post-war year, the workers of the plant Volkswagen produced about 10,000 cars. Today, the Volkswagen Beetle is the most recognizable car model in the world. 4. Jet engines and astronautics. The Third Reich invented the world's first jet plane. The genius engineer Wernher von Braun was one of the founders of modern rocket engineering. In 1942, the first guided ballistic missile was launched. Wernher von Braun is considered a controversial personality. On the one hand, he worked for the Nazis, was personally involved in the selection of workers for the defense plant from among the prisoners. Some say that they themselves have seen him beating campers from Buchenwald, sent to work. On the other hand, Braun himself claimed that he was unaware of the slave labor conditions in the war factories and denied that he was a supporter of Nazi ideology. In May 1945, he surrendered to American soldiers, and in September he received U.S. citizenship and began working on military and space programs. Wernher von Braun is called the father of American astronautics. A year after launching Soviet satellites, he launched the American Explorer. In the early 60s, von Braun became head of the American lunar program, developed the Saturn V launch vehicle, which delivered Neil Armstrong and other American astronauts to near-lunar orbit and allowed man to take the first step on the lunar surface. Note that although von Braun destroyed most of the ballistic missile design documents when he surrendered, This did not stop Soviet engineers from building similar ones in the USSR, restoring the blueprints. 3. IBM punch cards. Not invented, but used. IBM is an American company, but it already had a branch in Germany in the early 30s. After Adolf Hitler came to power, the representation in the country remained, and IBM did not refuse to cooperate with the Nazis. IBM subsidiary DHOMAG provided punch cards for first-generation computers to the German government. IBM controlled 90% of the world computer market at the time. The tabulating machines that Germany used could not operate without these punch cards. The book IBM and the Holocaust describes how the high technology of the time contributed to the genocide of the Jewish, and not just Jewish, people, before the war and the final solution to the Jewish question. IBM began supplying the Third Reich with equipment that helped conduct a roll call of the Jews in the country and eventually exterminate most of them. 2. Fanta was invented in Germany. Few people know that the carbonated drink Fanta was invented in Germany during the Third Reich as an alternative to Coca-Cola. The anti-Hitler coalition banned a number of names from entering the country. Among them were the ingredients for Coke. Year, the director of the German Coca-Cola plant, was not a member of the NSDAP. It is unknown whether he supported the Nazi regime. In any case, he decided to remain in Germany and continue to run the factory. The factory developed Fanta, which was made from apple cake and whey. It tasted very different from the orange Fanta we drink now, but the brand remained the same. 1. Nazi experiments with vaccines. Dr. Kurt Pletner worked in the Dachau camp during the war. He was involved in experiments with malaria, infecting prisoners with mosquitoes. After 1945, he spent several years on the run and later worked in Switzerland under his real name. At a university in Switzerland, Pletner's research conducted in concentration camps was legitimized by the scientific world community and accepted for work. At the University of Freiburg, he worked almost to the end of his days. Questions about his Nazi past were raised more than once, but there was insufficient evidence to prove his guilt. Kurt Pletner himself said that his experiments on prisoners did not harm them. But according to historians, during the experiments on people in Dachau, almost 500 people out of 1,000 test subjects died. There are many myths about the secret technology of the Nazis. What was not attributed to them, up to realized space flights in the mid-40s. In fact, most of these legends have nothing to do with reality. There's also speculation about how the course of the war might have turned if the Nazis had gotten a nuclear bomb. But fortunately that didn't happen, or the whole world might have died. Dear friends and guests of the channel, don't forget to put your super mega cool likes and comments. Don't forget to crowd up and please your friends with this video. Sincerely, Fine out. Have a great day, everyone.